Hello, everybody. This is David Johnston from Transcend Admissions Consultants, and this is my series Transcend Talks, where we take some time to talk to our previous clients about their educational and career progress since they've graduated. And we're very fortunate today to have two clients, Helen and Dongbo. And they were both MBA students. They were our clients back in 2011. So 10 years ago. Wow, hard to believe that. And Helen and Dongbo have a few things in common. They were friends at their university in Taiwan when they applied for MBA at the same time. Around that time, they had both been working abroad in Southeast Asia and South Asia. They had worked together at the same company post MBA, and they both live in the U.S. So they have some things in common now, and I know they have a lot of insights to share with all of you guys. But first, let's get them to just briefly introduce themselves. Hi, Helen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Helen. I graduated from Wharton in 2014. I worked for IBM, and then now currently I'm working for ServiceNow, which is an enterprise SaaS company. I am living in California.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Dongbo, what do you want to say about
Hi.
yourself?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Dongbo. I actually have an English name, Joseph.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, you didn't know that? Okay, now you know my secret. So yeah, I graduated from IESE. For those who probably don't know about the school, actually it's a good MBA school in Europe, in Spain, Barcelona. We'll talk about it a bit more. After MBA, I had the luxury to join the rotational program in IBM, and I've been with IBM since then, from 2014.
I think a lot of people heard of IESE, so don't be so modest. Yeah. Anyway, so look, you guys were both clients 10 years ago, and I know this was a long time ago, but yeah, thinking back on that time, a lot of people who listen to this recording are going to be applying this year to MBA or graduate programs. So thinking back to your application experience, do you have any memories or thoughts about this, Joseph?
Oh, good. So, well, time flies, although it was more than like 10 years ago. Now that I thought it was 7 years, but actually 10 years. It feels like it was just yesterday. I still remember vividly, I took a few days off just to concentrate fully on finishing the application essays. Well, in a nutshell, I think the best part of the MBA application experience was that it actually was a self-discovery process to a certain extent. I had to reflect upon my life and work experience holistically to be able to tell a more cohesive and comprehensive story about myself, right? Throughout the essay writing process and the interviews. This process, I would say, kind of helped clear my thoughts as I look back on what I had achieved in the first few years of my career, started to kind of connect the dots and to understand myself better. So that actually helped shape my career goals.
I think it's a very self-reflective process that we don't always do in our normal life until we have to. So I think what you're sharing is an experience a lot of people feel, I think. Or maybe, do you have any tips or like recommendations on the application process, Helen?
My advice would be starting early because it's a little bit of learning curve. I was born and grew up in Taiwan, so the education system is very different. I never applied for a school in my entire life until MBA. So the learning curve goes to, I didn't know how to write an essay about myself, and I don't know how to reflect my background and find my strength as something I can offer to the school. It's just not how I was trained. All right, I'm back. So where was I? Okay, so I think it's a little bit of learning curve. I never applied for school until MBA, so I wasn't trained to think this way. So when you apply for something, not only you have to know why you like the school, but also what you can bring to the table to make you a asset of your target. So that is a learning curve. Is it's an exploration, as Dongbo said, but it's more than that. It's a lot of it's more like skills. Like you have to learn how to write in a succinct way and build a strong story. So my advice would be start early, assuming that you know nothing. I when I entered this process, this is when I know like how little I know about the know-how, the writing, but this is worth the efforts because for the rest of your life, you'll be doing this over and over again, especially during MBA, after MBA, you will need the skills for interview and everything.
Okay, everyone, you heard it here. Start early. Good advice. All right, now, luckily you started early and did a great job, Helen, and you were admitted to Wharton. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Is there anything you'd like to share from your MBA life, some takeaway or some great memory?
Yeah, I had a lot of great memories. I made really good friends there. I think the most precious is friendship. Like I made really good friends there. We traveled together, and then it's fun and stress at the same time because I set my goal very clearly. The goal of going to MBA is not to do soul searching. I need to land a job in the end. So
Can't agree more.
it's a lot of pressure and a lot of money on the line, guys. Like this is investment. So I can't screw this up. So it's just like a lot of, I did like so many interview preps. We can talk about that later. And then at school is almost kind of like a comrade. Like we all work on something together. We help each other interview. And then some of my friends were like buy me bubble tea in the middle, like in 100 mock interview. It's great memories. I definitely learned a lot. I love it.
Okay, so I think Wharton may be a little bit better known than IESE, but Dongbo, believe me, a lot of people heard of IESE. A lot of people are interested in this school. We even had 3 clients admitted to it already this year. So anyway, let's just assume people heard of IESE, but maybe you can like just tell us something about the school that maybe we wouldn't know by just looking at the website or going to an information session.
Yeah, so I think the most important, let me start with my experience and then about my school. So again, not trying to advise for my school, although I like it a lot, is that my school actually is located in Barcelona. So you got to enjoy the sunshine, beach, and the food and wine, everything a lot, right? Since it's located in Europe, so you get to travel a lot. But that is not a purpose going to the MBA. As Helen said, it's a lot of money on the line, so you want to maximize it. I think one of the strengths of IESE is that it actually is very diversified. You know, there's a cap of any on the percentage of the applicants should not exceed 20% of the total student cohort. So that is a good thing, and also maybe for the Asian student from Taiwan, since our mother tongue is not English, right? So compared to going to the U.S., in Europe, most people's mother tongue is not the U.S. So even in school, at class, or in job research, you're kind of on the same start line as others. So that's another advantages of a school.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think, now it's 7 or 8 years later since you graduated. Now that you've started working and had multiple jobs, if you could go back to MBA and do something differently, is there something you would focus on, something you would want to learn that maybe you didn't?
Yeah, so I think Helen and I probably will both agree that most people go to MBA not just to get knowledge, want to land a good job. So I would say I was too focused on that. So if I could go back, I would just tell myself, relax and enjoy the journey. It's a journey that will continue throughout your life. Everything will turn out to be fine. Just don't panic. I think in general, one should expect three things from a good MBA experience. You start with landing a good job, building great interpersonal relationships, making good friends, and enriching knowledge. As I said, I was too focused on job search. I should have been more balanced. I was really unnecessary stress throughout the MBA life before I received some offers in my second year. So I would just tell myself, relax and enjoy life more. In terms of skills, I would say probably be more active in class participation to sharpen the communication and presentation skills. And also, since I've moved to the US, I realized that the ability to improvise at during a discussion probably is a very critical skill that most Asian students probably need to sharpen.
So are you basically saying take as many soft skill courses as you can?
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to take courses. You can practice this kind, just have that kind of mindset and try to be proactively participating in as many discussions as possible. Even sometimes you probably don't have any clue or any structure ideas. I think the more you do it, the more you'll find that I'll just say, by the end of the day, your counterparties don't know as much as you do. As long as you try to participate, your learn and improve.
Okay, so focus on job searching, but maybe don't go too far with it, and actually just try to enjoy the academic life too, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I think in this aspect, Helen probably is doing a better job.
Not sure about that. My advice is actually start early again. So I went into B school, have a very vague idea what I wanted to do. Like, it's really cliche. It's like, consulting, like that's what everyone wants to do. If I could do it again, I think I would try to reach out to the MBA network and find out what people do and talk to them about what they do. So then again, it's like personal sharing. My background prior to MBA was international sales in a hardware company. So my knowledge for the industry, like what's out there after MBA, was extremely limited. I only know there's investment banking, there's consultant, probably there's some like corporate strategy. For what? Like that's what I know. I didn't even know cloud. I didn't know there's SaaS offering. I didn't know what's out there. And then if I could do it again, I would reach out to the alumni and like talk to them, figure out what they do. I would start with industry and then ask them how they get there. What is their role? What do they do exactly? How do they like it? And then trying to find a match between what they do and what skill set I'm having right now and what I might acquire in the future, so that when I go into the MBA, I wouldn't just like get panicked, right? So I apply for as many positions as my schedule allowed. I went crazy. We'll talk about that later. But then I wish I were more focused. But the reason that I couldn't be focused was precisely I didn't know that much. So yeah.
Okay, so that career research takes a lot of time. It takes a while to build up those contacts and have those conversations. So you definitely need to start that early and not wait until the first month when you arrive in school and then start making those contacts.
Yeah. And one thing I would like to add on, is that the recruiting schedule for Asia, at least for Wharton, started really early. They started in the first semester in year one. It's tremendous amount of effort because for me, like that was my very first time going to school in the United States. There's just a lot of academic stuff I have to cover. And the first semester is where the students are not relaxing about academic, everyone just go all in, working super hard. And then coming from Asia, I want to recruit in Asia. I already have to navigate through all this like networking, cocktail networking, all these games I have to learn. So I would say, yeah, try to do some research beforehand.
I think you've hinted that you were focusing on consulting jobs, but you also were applying to finance jobs. You did a research analyst summer internship, right? And that you probably applied to other jobs too. So do you think this is a good idea to take a broad, to apply broadly to different types of jobs? Or is it too much work and you think you should really try to find a focus?
So rationally, I would say, stay focused. I do understand why people want to apply as many as they can, because there are some opportunities that just comes once in the lifetime. The opportunity to work in investment banking, in consulting, that does come once in a lifetime. Once you're out of MBA, the door is closed for a long time. The next time you'll get in is probably when you're like VP of a company, right? An established company. That's like 10, 15 years out of B school. You don't want to regret. So I understand why people apply. I did the same thing. So I would say, if you can't focus, right, because you don't want to miss the opportunity, do have a realistic expectation of the effort you want to put in. So pick some target industries and try to do a lot of deep research, and then don't expect like great outcome, because when you like spread it so thin, it's quite unlikely you will like get a whole bunch of returned offer. You'll get a lot of rejections, and that's okay, because your goal is to explore. This is why you're not focused. And then so for me, it's like I wasn't that focused in year one because I didn't know what's out there. And after that internship, this is when I kind of regrouped. It's like, okay, I think, which industry I want to go for. And then the second year, this is when I became more focused. So just accept and know what your goal is when you decide to focus versus not to.
Okay, so you still may want to apply to a lot of different jobs, but still, even within that, try to be as focused as you can so that you don't waste your efforts. It sounds like what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so just be realistic about the outcome. Just expect the outcome, right? So if you're not focused, the return rate will be pretty low, and that's okay, right?
Expect a few rejections. Okay?
Yes.
Don't be disheartened. Okay.
Yes.
But I know Dongbo applied to several jobs too, but I don't think he got many rejections. I think he got a lot of offers.
No, because
anyway.
I had a shotgun approach. So I applied for thousands, I got 3. So the hit rate, success rate was pretty low.
But I know anyway, since you've started your career, you've been in consulting roles, you've been in strategy roles in corporate development. Would you mind sharing like, what do you think you've learned through the MBA program that's helped you the most in your career so far? It's been the most,
kind of
most
skill
valuable.
or the knowledge that I can apply to. Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I don't think any class specific course or any kind of what kind of specific knowledge that is extremely helpful to my current role, because as you said, I took consulting, corporate development, business development, etc. But I would say the whole MBA education to me was not about specific knowledge. It's actually helped cultivate a habit of structured thinking, to naturally having a process of putting a framework to an undefined or unstructured problem. I think it is very critical and pretty effective, especially in large corporation, without consensus on what actually the problem or issue we are addressing, we could end up wasting a lot of time, right? So having a structure will help to help the whole team to effectively communicate and focus on the area we should do. So I think that is very important. Actually, that came from my maniacal focus on looking for a job, because I believe most jobs will require some form of case interview, and that will require a lot of. It's not just consulting, right? It's also nowadays I think every company would have some sort of case interview. And how do you excel at a case interview? Well, you just continue to practice and make it kind of like your own habit. So,
well, IESE is well known for using the case method. Would you like to give them some credit for this? You say basically analytical skills and problem solving are what helped you. So would you like to give IESE some credit for the case method?
I would say so, because most of our courses or case, like 80% are based upon cases. I remember the first in the first semester we had this class called, I think, problem solving or some sort of like this, and basically you have a case and you had to try to define the problem. What, people would, and you would be amazed or surprised at, you thought the problem is this, but your classmate think, no, this is not a problem, we should be addressing that. So that kind of reflects the reality of life, I guess.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to Helen now. Helen, you've had a few different jobs in the tech industry. You've been a product manager and now you're a pricing manager. I'd say your job is somewhat analytical now, but I think a pricing manager is not that well known. Would you like to talk about a little bit about what pricing manager does?
Yeah, so pricing manager's role is to design a pricing strategy. And this is an emerging discipline, especially for SaaS offerings, software as a service. So SaaS, software as a service, is just let me quickly introduce what SaaS is, just for the audience. So traditional software is that you sell to enterprise and they will install the software. It's kind of like Microsoft, you have like a CD-ROM or something installed in your server. Nowadays, most of the software company want to switch to SaaS offerings. So it's kind of like Microsoft 365. You don't install anything locally, and all the data is stored in cloud. So that's something that started to be very popular a couple of years back. And then pricing manager is emerging discipline for this industry because it's very important to price your product right. Do you want to price per headcount, concurrent users, usage pricing, per megabyte, etc. So this is a very quantitative role because pricing is such an important aspect to determine how much revenue you will be able to make. And then cost might be an issue, and then so it determines the top line basically. So it is an important role.
Okay, thank you. So I think a lot of people are interested in this type of quantitative data-oriented analytical roles that may be pricing analysts or marketing analysts or business analysts. And for these types of roles, a lot of people are actually considering MS and business analytics degrees because they think maybe, well, really focusing on data analysis may help me even more than an MBA. So I can tell you that a lot of people are considering both degrees today. They're considering both business analytics and MBA. So do you have any tips for anyone? Like, would you recommend an MBA or a business analytics degree for someone who wants to be some sort of analyst, marketing analyst, pricing analyst? Is it something you'd like to share with them about how to consider this choice?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a chat before this call. So I actually did some thinking. It's like, okay, so if I were in their shoes, how would I make a decision with the knowledge I have right now? So I would, what I did is I look up the job description online, right? It's all really transparent, like Google, like business analytics roles, like what are they looking for? So what I see is they do acquire analytic skills, but the preferred background is mostly MBA grad. So I think the reason goes like this. I agree 100% with Dongbo says MBA helps me to think analytically. So that is not just a quantitative skill. Before we dive into the numbers, we don't want to boil the ocean, which is a term I learned in B school, right? So what problem so what problem are we trying to solve here, and how to prioritize? B school term is how to strategize, like where among all this data, which one do you want to pull first, right? So that is step number one. It's very critical to define the right problem, and then you will define what math are you trying to do here, right? So I think MBA taught me such skills. And then one level down will be, okay, so now can you do the quantitative work? These skills in Silicon Valley, people would learn this all the time, right? So today would be this software, tomorrow will be another one. You can't, at least for me, I think it's really hard to know all these things out of school. And that's okay. We have Coursera, we have all these like online courses, LinkedIn Learning. I taught myself Tableau like last year. I never heard of this before until I came here. And I learned this. I use this every single day, and then, like people like it, right? And I learned to visualize data. So I think to help us make a decision, be very clear about your goal. So if your goal is to land a job in the States, right? So you want to pick a STEM, then that's fine. But then you just have to know like what kind of job you'll end up landing. And then if you want to start with the role in mind, then go to career side and look up the preferred requirements. Then you'll have a really good idea what degree you want to have.
Okay, but so to clarify, would you say that some sort of analyst role, maybe are you saying you would recommend MBA because you can learn analytic skills in MBA, but maybe more than that as well? But if you want to be a data scientist or a data engineer, then maybe you consider a more analytical degree like business analytics. Is
I
that what
would
you're saying?
say, so I would say, I would say there, if I would say you can learn analytics skills in MBA plus problem solving.
Hmm.
The same thing, you can learn both in MSBA, right? But just take a look at the job descriptions. This is what other companies want, right? I look into like Google Business Analytics. They want MBA. This is what they want. So what do you want to offer to the table? So I think that would be how I look into that, you know, instead of making any recommendations. Like, let's look at what the target recruiters want, right?
Yeah, good idea. Let's really focus on the job you want and see what they're requiring. And I'm going to switch back to Dongbo, Joseph, or Mr. Lin. Hi. Now, you've told me the other day that in your current role at IBM, you actually get a chance to sit in on like a lot of executive level meetings and observe the really top management. So is there something you can share, like after observing these people, what do you think is like something that someone needs to reach that level, a kind of mindset or a skill?
You mean to reach the level of senior leadership, or
Yeah.
Well, I think first of all, you get it. Most of the senior exec I know, they are very hardworking. I mean, that is the must. When I
You
say
don't get there
hardworking,
without hard work. Okay.
yeah, and they start their day at five o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning. It's kind of crazy, especially because in my current role as a chief of staff, right? I'm kind of as you said, I kind of got an opportunity to sit in all those senior meetings, and because they are they're responsible for international business, so many of the calls will be with Europe, in Australia, in Asia, so that you gotta accommodate all the time zone, and you have to start their meeting early. Another thing is that they are very good at um, bringing different teams um, together. Uh, my boss, I think, is very, to a certain extent. I mean, if he had been in politics, it would be a great diplomat.
Mm.
He's good at leveraging all the resources he has. All the people most people who work for him doing his project do not report to him. That tells how good he at in maneuvering that kind of resources. I was just simply amazed. And that
Mm.
guy, he also works very hard, of course, but he has a, a no meeting policy after 6 p.m. unless it is from maybe CEO, right? So he actually has, because I think he has a very clear plan as to what he would contribute or dedicate to this work, and he knows how to build a long-term plan, not to burn himself out either. So I
Mm.
think that's pretty critical as well.
So I think you've talked before about work-life balance. What do you think's the key to achieving that? You need to work really hard to get to that level, but not burn yourself out. So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, well, if as you probably know, and Helen knows that I'm pretty a laid back person, so I don't really have a very ambitious goal. But to be honest, there's no such a thing as free lunch, so it's all about trade-off. I think the key here is that you need to know what exactly is the price you're paying and what you're
Mm.
gaining, right? And if you think it's worth it, then you should go for it. And for those who have family like us, you have partner and then your kids. I think it's very important you communicate very clearly your plan and make sure your wife or your husband is supportive. Like for example, before I took the role, I consulted my friend who did this chief of staff role, and I came to know it would be very demanding in terms of time and high tension. Sometimes you're kind of always on call, even during weekends. But on the other hand, it could be a good stepping stone to become an exec, right? Quicker. So that's what you trade off for. So
I think Helen might have some thoughts on this too. I know she aspires to be a business executive. Do you want to give some advice to women out there who are also trying to get there, Helen?
Yeah, I agree with Dongbo that you want to communicate with your partner and have a supportive partner. And so I think there are some challenges that unique to women is that very often that women are expected to take care of the family and the job at the same time. So if this is not something that we don't want to do, make sure that we communicate with the partner that like how much we care about career, right? So what is the work-life balance that we expect to have, and then ask the partner to take a fair share. So have that upfront communication helps. So this is not to undermine the challenge that women are facing. I do think transparent communication can help this problem and challenge. And then to have an executive role, I think I'm also in this journey. I'm not there yet. So I would say I'm in a corporate, the career ladder is not always clear. It's not as linear as say like consulting or investment banking, right? So it takes a lot of exploration. So find a mentor who you aspire to become. They're probably already at the role you want to have, or they have a similar background like you do. Reach out to them, ask good questions, introduce yourself, ask them like what is their inspiration and how did they get there, and then model them. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think finding that great mentor can really change your life and point you in a direction that you might not otherwise ended up in.
Yeah, I think on the mentor part, I think it's very critical, especially for maybe a big company, because it's all about networking. And especially, if you want to become an exec, I think it would be very helpful if you have one or two mentors that would be supportive, because they will be able to point you to the right person to talk to, who probably will be reviewing your slate to become an exec. So it's very often it's just like it takes a phone call to call the person, and then you can make things work, right? So
well, I'm impressed by you guys. Both of your career progress has been excellent. I can see you're moving in the right direction, and I can see that an MBA has really helped both of you, and I really appreciate you sharing. And I'd like to ask one more question just for fun. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you miss Taiwan right now?
Oh, 20, 100. I miss home a lot. I really do.
Yeah, exponential.
Okay, please come back and visit when you can. Hopefully we'll see you next year, or maybe by the end of the year or early next year. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share with us, and let's keep in touch, okay?
Sure.
Yes. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.